The kettle hissed softly, releasing a thin curl of steam that glowed in the morning sun. Sarah Whitlow moved mechanically through her routine, her slippers brushing the polished tiles of their neat suburban kitchen. The smell of roasted beans filled the air, but it did nothing to calm the unease twisting in her stomach. Upstairs, she could hear Nathan humming a faint tune from the shower. It was the same melody he always sang when he was trying too hard to seem relaxed. Her phone buzzed beside the toaster. A single notification pulsed on the screen, one new voice message. The name above it made her chest tighten. She hovered her thumb over play, but Nathan's footsteps creaked down the hallway, and she locked the screen before he entered. "Morning, love," he said, smiling as he adjusted his tie. He looked immaculate as always, but there was something hollow in his eyes. When he kissed her cheek, his lips were cool. "Big day at work?" she asked, forcing her voice steady. "Same as every day," he replied, rinsing his mug. His movements were precise, measured, as though he were rehearsing a part. When the door shut behind him, silence filled the house like fog. The ticking clock seemed louder than before. Sarah stared at the basement door. That dark, unremarkable slab of wood Nathan always kept locked. He'd said it was just tools and paint, but lately she'd heard faint scraping sounds at night. The kind that linger after you stop listening. She sipped her coffee, hand trembling slightly, and turned on the television. The morning anchor's voice floated through the quiet. "Authorities continue searching for a missing woman last seen on Ashcombe Lane." The report ended, but the unease didn't. The street name echoed in her head. Ashcombe Lane, 2 roads from their own. Sarah's eyes drifted back to the basement door. The light flickered once. Something in her gut told her that behind that door, the truth was already waiting. Rain pattered softly against the kitchen window that evening, tracing streaks down the glass as Sarah Whitlow watched the driveway. Nathan's car was late again. It had become routine now, his messages growing shorter and vaguer each night. Works piled up. "Don't wait for me. Lock the doors." Always polite, always distant. When the clock struck 10, she finally heard the engine outside. Nathan entered without meeting her eyes, his shoes damp, the smell of oil faint on his sleeves. He went straight to the basement door, keys jingling in a precise rhythm, and locked it behind him. A low whir started from below, followed by a scraping pulse that made the floorboards tremble beneath her feet. She stepped closer. "Nathan, what are you doing down there?" His voice floated up, calm but cold. "Tools, nothing you'd understand." Sarah's stomach twisted. His tone was practiced, almost rehearsed, like someone repeating a line they didn't believe. The hum grew louder, metallic and alive. Then silence. When he came up again, his hands were clean and he smiled too easily. "You should sleep, love." Long day. That night she dreamt of the basement door standing open, light spilling from it in violent flashes. A voice whispered her name in the dark, soft and deliberate. When she turned, there was no one there, only the feeling of breath against her ear. Sarah woke slick with sweat, the house dead quiet. Moonlight cut through the blinds, landing on the table where Nathan's keys lay beside his wallet. She stared at them until her pulse steadied enough to move. She took the spare key, her fingers trembling as metal brushed her skin. It felt heavier than it should have. She tucked it into her robe pocket before sunrise, heart thudding with the thrill of fear. The next evening she told herself she would use it. By Saturday evening, the Whitlow house looked ready for company. Candles glowed in amber holders, the table set with polished silver, and the smell of roasted lamb drifted through the air. To anyone walking past, it would have looked like a perfect suburban evening. But to Sarah, every flicker of light felt staged, every laugh rehearsed. Mark and Isla Copley arrived just after 7, smiling and arm in arm. Usla's perfume filled the room as she handed over a bottle of wine. "To surviving marriage," she teased, her voice light but edged. Nathan's answering laugh came too sharp, too quick. Dinner began easily enough. They spoke of work, new neighbors, the upcoming charity gala. Yet beneath the conversation, Sarah could feel something brittle in Nathan's posture, a stiffness that grew each time she spoke. When she mentioned she'd been sleeping poorly, his knife froze mid-cut before resuming with perfect calm. Halfway through dessert, Isla laughed about her husband's clumsiness. "At least Mark doesn't brood when I burn the toast," she said playfully. Nathan's smile was tight. Not everyone has your patience, Isla. The tension fractured fully when Sarah's hand slipped, spilling a splash of red wine across the white cloth. Nathan's hand shot out, gripping her wrist hard enough to sting. The laughter died. His voice was low and even. "Careful, darling." She nodded, unable to speak. When he finally released her, faint crimson marks lingered on her skin. Later, as the guests left, Isla lingered by the door. "Are you all right?" she asked quietly. Sarah's smile was thin. "Of course. Just tired." When the door shut, Nathan stood behind her. His tone was soft but flat. "You know I'd never hurt you, right?" She didn't answer, only rubbed her wrist beneath her sleeve. In the flickering candlelight, his shadow stretched longer than it should have. The next morning, Nathan left in a hurry. He forgot his briefcase, his phone charger, and most importantly, his key ring that lay beside the sink. Sarah noticed it immediately, the silver glint catching her eye like a whisper from the house itself. For a moment, she stood motionless, pulse echoing in her ears. By the time his car disappeared around the corner, she was already moving. The basement door stood quiet at the end of the hallway, unremarkable yet magnetic. The key slid into the lock with a hesitant click. Cold air rushed out, carrying a faint mechanical hum that felt almost alive. Each step down the narrow stairs creaked like a warning. The single bulb above flickered weakly, casting uneven light across rows of shelves lined with labeled jars and scattered tools. Her breath quickened. Nothing seemed out of place at first, but then she saw the workbench. Pinned neatly to a corkboard were photographs of her. Smiling at a market, jogging near the park, asleep in bed. Some were old, edges yellowed. Others were taken recently from angles she could not recall being seen. Across several of them, a red marker slashed through her face, sharp and deliberate. She reached out, fingers trembling, tracing the ink as her stomach twisted. A faint click drew her attention to the corner of the room. A small camera light blinked red, recording. Her throat closed. The air thickened around her as realization seeped in. From upstairs, the floorboards groaned. A door opened and Nathan's calm voice called down, "Sarah, what are you doing down there?" Her breath hitched. The light above her flickered violently. She turned toward the stairs, heart pounding, knowing she had seconds to hide the truth she was never meant to see. Night swallowed the house in thick silence. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, every nerve raw, her eyes fixed on the door. The discovery in the basement still pulsed in her mind like a fever. When Nathan's footsteps echoed up the stairs, she tightened her grip on the phone hidden beneath the blanket, thumb poised on the emergency call. He entered quietly, his expression unreadable. "You've been quiet tonight," he said, his tone almost gentle. She stood, trembling. "Why are there pictures of me in the basement?" Nathan's eyes flickered, and for a fleeting second, something human vanished behind his calm. "You weren't supposed to find out yet," he replied, voice steady, almost detached. "Find out what?" she snapped. "That you've been watching me? Cataloging me like some experiment?" He took a slow step forward. "That's exactly what it is. A study on behavioral response to trust and fear. You're part of something bigger, Sarah." The words hit like static. "You're insane." He laughed quietly, a sound without warmth. "Insanity implies I don't understand what I'm doing. I do. They're watching how you react, how love breaks under pressure." Her throat closed. "Who's watching?" He didn't answer. He only moved closer, eyes dark, voice lower. "If you walk out that door, they'll kill us both." For a moment, neither moved. The only sound was the low hum of the house, as if it too held its breath. She stepped back, trying to read his face. Was it fear or manipulation she saw there? Nathan knelt slowly, hands open. "Please, Sarah, I'm trying to protect you." Her mind reeled. The conviction in his voice felt real, terrifyingly real, and for the first time, she wondered if the enemy wasn't him at all. The morning after the confession felt heavier than the night before. Nathan had left early, claiming he was meeting them, whoever that meant. His absence gave Sarah space to breathe, though the air still felt charged, thick with something unseen. The house no longer felt like home. Every window seemed to hold a reflection that lingered too long. By noon, she'd made up her mind. She found her phone buried under a pile of unopened mail and scrolled until she reached Isla's number. Her fingers hovered before typing, "I need to see you." "It's about Nathan." The reply came almost instantly. "My place at 5. Don't bring him. Relief pricked through the fear. She exhaled for the first time in hours and pressed the phone to her ear. Isla, I can't explain over text. Something's wrong. The air shifted. A faint reflection in the dark television screen showed him standing behind her. Nathan's expression was calm, almost curious. She froze. He walked forward, silent, his hand extending slowly toward the phone. Without a word, he ended the call and placed it on the counter. They're already watching us, he said softly. You can't contact anyone. Puts them in danger. Sarah's pulse thudded painfully in her chest. Who's watching? He didn't answer. He only smiled. A fragile curve that didn't reach his eyes, then walked upstairs, humming under his breath. That night, unable to sleep, she unlocked her phone again. A new icon blinked on the home screen, an app she'd never seen before. It was a location tracker registered to his name. She deleted it once, then twice, but it reappeared each time, like a ghost refusing to leave. When she finally looked out the window, rain had begun to fall. Across the street, under a flickering lamppost, a black car idled. Its headlights were off, but the faint hum of its engine filled the silence. The next morning arrived pale and uneasy. Rain had stopped, but the clouds hung low, pressing against the roofs of the street. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, her coffee untouched, her thoughts circling the car that had vanished sometime before dawn. She opened her laptop to search for private investigators, but a new message appeared before the page could load. Unknown user. I know what he's done. Her fingers hovered over the keys. Before she could type a reply, another message appeared. You're not his first. My name is Ilara. Attached was a single photograph. A woman's face bruised around the temple, eyes hollow but steady. Behind her, unmistakably, was the Whitlow kitchen. Sarah's breath caught. Who are you? She typed. His wife, came the response. The one he buried after the fire. The words made her skin prickle. Nathan had never mentioned anyone before her. No divorce papers, no photos, nothing. You're lying, she wrote, but her heart wasn't convinced. Check the basement, the next message said. It's all staged. He's not who you think he is. None of it is real. He wants to see how far you'll go before you break. It's his experiment. Sarah stared at the screen, reading and rereading until the letters blurred. Ilara's tone was too calm, too certain. Her rational mind screamed to ignore it, but the truth had already cracked open. She searched the local archives, pulling up fire records from 10 years back. There was a house on Harrow Lane, destroyed in an electrical blaze. 2 residents listed, Nathan Whitlow and 1 unidentified female, both presumed missing. Yet when she checked the National Registry for an Ilara Whitlow, the system returned nothing. No birth certificate, no passport, no record of existence at all. The cursor blinked on her screen like a pulse. Then another message arrived. He's coming home early. Don't let him see this. The house was silent, the kind of silence that hummed in the bones. Sarah waited until the rhythmic sound of the shower upstairs told her Nathan was occupied. Then she moved. Barefoot careful, she crossed the hallway and descended into the cold breath of the basement. The air felt heavier now. The flickering bulb swung slightly as if disturbed by someone moments before. Every photo that had once covered the wall was gone. The corkboard lay bare, only faint pinholes left behind. Evidence of something deliberately erased. Her pulse quickened. She turned toward the workbench. The camera was still there, small and black, its red light pulsing. A single eye watching. She picked it up, her hands trembling. The screen blinked to life, static, then motion. A figure appeared. The basement, that same bulb swaying above. A shape moved across the frame, dragging something wrapped in a blue tarp. Sarah leaned closer. It was her. Same clothes, same hair tied back. Sweat glistened on her forehead as she pulled the weight across the floor. She paused once, looked directly into the lens, and smiled faintly. A smile she didn't remember. The timestamp read 2 nights ago. Her stomach turned. She dropped the camera. The thud echoed through the concrete room. The image froze mid-frame, her own face staring back from the floor. A voice broke the silence. Now do you see why I can't let you go? She spun around. Nathan stood in the doorway, hair damp, towel around his neck, eyes calm. Too calm. Her breath came in shallow bursts. The camera light blinked between them like a heartbeat, red and relentless. The rain came without warning, slicing through the air like broken glass. Sarah sprinted down the slick pavement, clutching the camera to her chest as if it could still save her. Thunder rolled across the neighborhood, swallowing the sound of her footsteps. Lena's house came into view, porch light flickering, front door open just enough to sway with the wind. Sarah hesitated, soaked and shivering, before stepping inside. The living room was chaos. Chairs overturned, picture frames shattered across the floor, a wine bottle still dripping its last dark stain into the carpet. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Lena?" No answer. Then she saw it, a trail of blood leading toward the kitchen. A phone lay on the counter ringing, its screen lighting up her pale face. Daniel's name flashed again and again. She stared for too long before picking up. "Sarah," his voice came through, low and deliberate. "You did this." Her throat closed. "What are you talking about?" "You always do this," he said. "You forget and then you blame me." The words scraped her mind. Rain battered the windows. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail. Her reflection in the kitchen window looked wrong, smeared, trembling, eyes wide with confusion. She looked down. Her hands were streaked with blood. The phone slipped from her grasp. A flash of lightning illuminated the room. For a split second, she thought she saw someone standing in the doorway. But when the thunder followed, the figure was gone. She turned back toward the open door, clutching the camera tighter, unsure whether to run or remember. Outside, the storm screamed, erasing every trace of what had just happened. By the time the police arrived, the storm had passed. The air in the Bennett house hung heavy with damp silence, broken only by the rhythmic hum of rain dripping from the gutters. Flashlights cut through the darkness as officers moved carefully down the narrow hallway toward the basement. Detective Rafael Morales led the way. His boots echoed against the wooden stairs before he froze at the bottom. Sarah sat on the cold floor, drenched, her hair plastered against her pale face. She was whispering Daniel's name under her breath, over and over, her eyes fixed on the far wall. The room was bare, no photographs, no camera, no signs of a struggle. Just peeling paint and the faint smell of bleach. "Mrs. Bennett?" Morales crouched beside her. "Where's your husband?" She looked up slowly, her lips twitching. "He said they'd come for us if I stopped recording." Her gaze drifted to a cracked mirror leaning against the wall. Morales noticed the reflection. She was smiling at it, as if waiting for someone to answer. Later, at the station, Morales reviewed the recovered footage from the camera she had carried through the storm. His stomach tightened as the screen flickered to life. Sarah stood before the mirror, speaking softly. "Elena, my name is Elena. He told me to finish the experiment." Her tone was calm, almost tender, as she touched her own reflection. There was no sign of Daniel. He paused the feed, glancing at the file. No record of any Daniel Bennett existed. According to neighbors, Sarah had lived alone since moving in 3 years ago. As Morales turned to leave the basement one last time, something stopped him, a faint mechanical hum. He traced the sound to a small metal door beneath the stairs, locked tight, vibrating slightly. He leaned closer. Someone whispered from the other side,